So welcome, thank you for coming tonight. This is a co-presentation with the Sustainability Commission, the Red Wing Sustainability Commission. I'm just going to say a quick word about League of Minnesota, League of Women Voters is a national organization and has a very strong presence in Minnesota and of course in Red Wing. We're, I think, almost 100 years old. And we are, of course, celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's achieving the right to vote, and you'll be hearing a lot about that in the coming year. We have some great things planned this year, including there'll be a traveling exhibit about this issue. They'll be going across the state. That will be visiting the Goodhue County Historical Museum next spring, and there'll be quite a few activities, concerts, all kinds of things around that, with several other organizations, including the Association of University Women, AUW. So we're really excited about that. So the main goal of League of Women Voters is, well, we have a couple of things. I suppose the main thing is voter education. We want to make sure that our participants in our democracy are educated, they know what they're talking about, they can go to the polls and participate in other activities in an educated way. They know where to get the information and they know what to ask. We're very, very much dedicated to doing that in a nonpartisan manner. And so we want to always make sure that all of our activities, all of our presentations are done in a very respectful way. We want to encourage open debate and dialogue, but we always want to make sure that we're not drowning out one side or the other. So we ask that everyone be very respectful of that tonight. Now, some of the issues in off-election years, we have taken on a couple of issues, and every league chapter takes on a few different things that they are very passionate about. Our league has been very active in the area of campaign finance. We did a lot of activities on that last year. We've also done quite a bit on the environment and had several, and that's of course one of the activities, that's what tonight is about. And then about education. We've done quite a bit about education finance, other kinds of issues, and you can look forward to some more activities or presentations the next few months. So I was not one of the people who was helping organize tonight. So I just wanted to tell you briefly about the overview, and now I'm going to turn it over to Paul Drodos, who has had many hats in his varied career and is going to come tell us about what he's doing now. He's here as the, hopefully I get this right, Part-Time Sustainability Commission Coordinator. Did I get that right? Thank you. Okay. But as you all know, he's done many, many other things and is also a Goodhue County Commissioner. So I don't believe he's here in that capacity tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I just want to say one quick thing, which is that I was formerly a city council member here in Red Wing for over 8 years and was very, very involved in issues related to solid waste, and came to really appreciate how hard the people who work on this issue, both at the county and the city level and the state level, work on this. And people have no idea of the hours and hours that goes into trying to negotiate arrangements, I won't call them deals, arrangements that benefit everyone from a tax perspective and how your city dollars are spent, but also environmentally, what's the best thing? And I know sometimes people don't really understand how much environmental impact plays a part in what cities and counties decide to do. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that tonight. So I'll turn it over to Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Lisa. And she's right. I'm here as a just representative of the Sustainability Commission. Sustainability, as you know, impacts all our lives, and as Lisa said, the environment is a very important part of government and certainly our citizenship. I guess my main claim to fame is I am the official father of Reuben the Blue Bin. And if you've been to parades in Red Wing and paid attention or have a blue bin that you're currently using for recycling, you understand that, at least I understood when I first heard about this, the concept of the blue bin came from the Toronto area. It's a Canadian idea that kind of spread throughout our country. And I listened to a podcast from somebody from Laurentian, Ontario, who said the only way to increase recycling is to advertise. So That turned out to be a mascot. The mascot in Ontario happened to be someone called Betty the Blue Box. And of course that morphed into Reuben the Blue Bin, which is an original character for our area. And over the last 11 years I've gone to every kindergarten class and talked about the importance of recycling. So our young citizens seem to have not much of a problem with this. However, I asked them two very important questions. And the first question is always, do you really need 50 pairs of shoes? And almost all the kids say, no. But if you really want to ask a question about recycling, ask kids, would you throw your Legos in the garbage? The look of horror is unbelievable. Not to mention, the answer is no. So anyway, kids already know something about reducing, reusing, and recycling even at an early age. So we try and teach them the important skills of living in an advanced society. That being said, we're here this evening, and thank you, what a great turnout. We didn't know who to expect or why you're here, but we're very delighted that the League has picked this issue because it's a critical issue for ourselves and certainly for the next generation. So we have three speakers here this evening and a guest. I will introduce two of them, and then the agency people insist on introducing themselves, because I guess if you work for an agency, you might consider yourself a secret agent. That's the only reason I can figure that out. But our first speaker this evening will be Jason Fran, and he's the superintendent for the City of Red Wing Public Works Solid Waste, Refuse, and Recycling Division. Now that's a title. Jason has been working for the City of Red Wing for over 17 years. All those years he has been involved in the Public Works Solid Waste Division. 11 of those years working as the incinerator operations, and six of those as the refuse and recycling operations. So he definitely is an expert on the field. Originally we were scheduled to have Jeff Schneider. He had a family emergency. His grandmother passed away and he had to attend to family business. So Jason graciously filled in as of yesterday, and we appreciate his input and his knowledge and his great work for the City of Red Wing. Our second speaker this evening will be Steve
S.
Steve
Shufflebite.
Shufflebite. Okay, Steve S. Steve is representing Republic Services, and Steve says he is the recycling sales representative for the Upper Midwest region. He's responsible for acquiring and then marketing of third-party recycling volume. He has held this position with Republic Services for the past 5 years and has been in the recycling industry for 8 years. He has successfully spearheaded numerous recycling initiatives which have diverted a significant amount of volume from either being landfilled or illegally burned, and one of the most notable projects being the recycling of boat wrap. Over 200,000 pounds of boat wrap was recycled in 2018 alone. He also spends a great deal of time working with and educating public and private sector on the best recycling practices. Steve received his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Southwest Minnesota State University in Marshall. He resides in Burnsville, so we appreciate the miles coming down here this evening. And finally, Wayne Jurdy. Yeah, I'm sorry, Wayne. I met Wayne at an Association of Minnesota Counties where he was a presenter in the environmental group. His knowledge of recycling and utilization was something that all counties and certainly municipalities are looking desperately for as a way to use recyclable materials. So Wayne is definitely an expert in that area. He will introduce himself and explain a little bit about the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, who also has Anna Kerr, who is, I can honestly say, is a friend of mine from years back. We worked in the Stormwater Division and Clean Water part of the Pollution Control Agency together. Anna has since transferred to the Solid Waste Division and will be another expert or resource for our question and answer period. So once again, thank you for all being here. Thank you for being concerned citizens, and especially concerned for our planet, our future, and how we go into that future. So I will now hand the microphone over to Jason to explain a little bit about his experience and what the City of Red Wing is trying to do. Jason Fran.
All right, thank you. We're talking about the City of Red Wing recycling. All right, our current recycling program uses a 3-sort collection method that collects weekly, and our fleet consists of 5 vehicles, 3 recycling trucks, and 2 scooters. You can see at the top there, our operator there is, he picked up the bin. He's got to sort the recycling into 3 commodities. Got the paper and fibers, and then the plastic, tin, and aluminum, and then the glass. And then in the bottom picture there, currently we got 2 scooters. And so the scooters, right now, they get the hard to get areas. They pick up the valet collection. And what they're doing is they're sorting into the brown bins. And right now, when the brown bins get full, they meet up with the white trucks there. And then they load onto the trucks, then they dump, and then they got to load them brown bins back onto the scooter. So it's pretty labor intense. So like I said, we got 5 vehicles in that fleet. In 2018, the City of Red Wing was awarded 2 recycling grants, one from the Recycling Partnership for $59,392, and the other grant was from the MPCA for $250,000 for a total of $309,392 in grants. The grants will help cover the cost for purchasing 1 automated truck, the recycling carts, and the educational promotional materials. So this is what the new single sort system will look like, the program. We'll use a single sort recycling method, which will consist of 1 automated truck and 1 satellite truck that will collect the recycling every other week. We'll start delivering the carts on September 3rd, 2019, and begin collection on September 16th, 2019. The current service day will stay the same. The collection will just be every other week. The city will be working in cooperation with Rob Taylor and Rachel Kipper from the Recycling Partnership, and they will provide educational material to ensure the success of this program. So we'll be using the automated trucks on the longer streets, and then the satellite trucks in the hard to get areas, and we'll continue our valet collection. The benefits of single sort recycling, we'll have the reduction in the fleet, so we'll be going from the 5 trucks down to the 2 trucks, and then that'll lower the purchase costs and maintenance costs. 1 less truck on the road, which will reduce emissions, wear and tear on the roads, which will reduce and less traffic. The employee safety, not having to get out on every collection stop. Reduction of workers' compensation claims due to the bending, twisting, lifting of the bins and the falls in the icy curb lines. Using the carts with the lid protects the recycling from the elements. The problem with the current bin is during windy days, recycling will blow all over the place, making a mess. The rain and snow makes sorting more difficult. It also reduces the commodity value being wet and broken down. We'll see an increased participation in recycling up to 125 pounds per household.
Material recovery facilities, or MRFs, are where recyclables go after they leave the curbside bins. The MRF sorts, processes, and bales these recyclables to be shipped to manufacturers. First, all the materials are unloaded and placed onto a conveyor belt in preparation for sorting. They then fall onto an inclined screen and are sorted by gravity and shape. The paper products travel up the screen. While the paper products travel up, containers fall back and through the screen onto a new conveyor that takes them to their next step in the sorting process. This process isn't foolproof. Workers sort out trash and misdirected recyclables by hand. This lessens the amount of contamination in the final recycling load. The paper products are dropped into a holding container that waits at the end of the conveyor, then baled. Plastic bags are the #1 problem at a MRF. While they are recyclable, a MRF can't process them. Take plastic bags to a grocery store, and they will take care of recycling those. The containers that previously rolled down and through the screen begin the next step with super strong magnets that attract steel. They pick steel products up and move them to another conveyor that delivers them to their appropriate holding container. Magnets don't attract aluminum, so it's sorted through a kind of reverse magnet called an eddy current, which shoots the aluminum products into a catch bin. Next, the heavier glass falls into a pit, while the lighter plastic materials float onto the next conveyor belt for further sorting. The now broken glass, called cullet, is then shipped to a glass recycling facility. Sometimes plastics are manually sorted, but more and more this is done through optical sorting. This means the plastic is scanned and sorted by puffs of air into groups of type and color. Number 1 plastics are taken out of the process, stored, and baled. Plastics the scanners don't pick up are further sorted by workers into specific groups. Plastics not removed during this process fall off the end of the conveyor into a pit to be shipped to plastic manufacturers. After all the materials have been sorted and processed, except for the glass, they are baled and can weigh anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 pounds. Manufacturers buy these bales and create new products of that recycled material. Find out more at recyclemorenc.org.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for setting this up. Paul, thank you. And if I go too long, cut me off, okay? This is really cool that Jason showed a video of like how a MRF works. I really wanted to focus on acceptable and unacceptable recycling. It's challenging, right? Things are always changing, and it takes a lot of extra effort and work to recycle. So you guys obviously want to make sure that when you're recycling, it's being recycled, correct? Yeah. Excellent. Just a show of hands, who's all been to a recycling center before? Excellent, excellent. So probably a good 15-20%. So I'm all about participation. So anyone want to take a guess? Hierarchy. Which is the best one here out of this? Ideally. Next one? Last? We all agree on the last one. I personally, I think reduce is probably the way to go, and then reuse, and then recycle. Obviously, if we can just kind of eliminate things, probably the best way to go. But with that being said, what we want to look at tonight is sustainable recycling. So we'll drill down a little bit. By sustainable recycling, there's really 3 things that need to exist. As a guy that markets this material, I'm looking for something that has a lot of volume. Thank you. You have to have something that has a lot of volume. Again, as Jason kind of alluded to, you're baling stuff up, has to go out in a semi. You have to have 20-ton loads. You don't want stuff sitting around. So you want, that is the most important thing. You want to have a way to capture it via your truck, at your MRF. You have to have bins, those types of things. We also want to have multiple end markets. And obviously we've seen, and Wayne's going to touch on this as well, the markets have changed a lot recently. So when we look, or I look at selling a product, I don't want to just have one market, I want to have several markets. Because the last thing you, of a homeowner, wants to hear is, hey, this is recyclable, and then all of a sudden 6 months later it's not. That's frustrating. You got to re-educate people, and so you want to keep recycling simple. Last but not least, there's got to be value. So ideally, what we're selling is going to be more than the cost of picking up the material. It's going to be more than the cost of processing it, right? So, and again, Wayne's going to go a little bit more into this. I don't want to step on his shoes. But one of the things that really affected recycling as a whole here lately is overseas. Somebody made the comment, how can somebody sneeze or cough overseas and it causes America a cold? This is it right here. When China basically said that they wanted to ban certain commodities from coming to their country and also clean up their stream, it really affected us because single stream recycling was really based upon China taking our material. So 40% of America's mixed paper, that's when you put your paper in your recycling bin, you got your newspaper maybe in there, you got your magazine inserts, you got some office paper, that all gets baled up, and it's not a very good grade, but it's a grade. That was a very viable grade until recently. To kind of give you an idea, just in 1 year, we saw mixed paper drop about $80 a ton. Today, mixed paper, if you can get anything for it, you're lucky. It's very difficult to move right now, because when you took out China, and all of a sudden we have an overabundance of supply in the United States for the mills that we have here. So their quality specs went up, and what it happened then for us is to improve quality, we have to add more heads on the lines, invest more capital, and then run at slower speeds to make sure that we're getting the desired product for the end market. So tonight what I wanted to get and talk about is acceptable, unacceptable recycling. So kind of decision time, you know, what do I do? Which one do I put it in? Do I put it in recycling or do I put it in trash? So I want to give you that perspective. I know, like, again, 15–20% of you have been to a MRF. Jason showed the video, but I just want to show some challenges that we have at a recycling center. Because again, it's a partnership. We're all in this together. So the haulers, the recycling centers, there's Wayne from the government there. Wayne's like picture there, and then we've got the residents. So, you know, and then you look at residential recycling. Well, then if you're looking at, you know, commercial, you got your schools, your industrial, your businesses, your manufacturers. You know, we all play a part in making sure that we have sustainable recycling that makes sense. So as Jason alluded to in his video, when your material is loaded up, put on a semi, it comes to a recycling center and it hits what we call the tipping floor. Okay, so we have a metering bin, if you will, that it goes into, kind of meters out, so it's a nice stream that goes through the system. So I'm going to ask anybody that knows right away, what do you think some of the challenges are that we see? Because I will tell you, if anybody watches the show Bond Stars, anybody watch that in here? One of the things they always say is you'll be surprised when it comes through our front door. I guarantee at the MRF we've seen everything at the recycling center. So anybody have an idea about maybe a challenge at this point right here at the front of the system, what it could be? An idea? Oh, we got a quiet group. I'll go then. So we get a lot of pallets. We get lawnmowers. We get car bumpers. Okay, when that comes to us, it can't go up the conveyor belt. It's just too wide, and obviously it's not marketable in the first place, but it just can't go through. So this is not ours, actually, a bigger loader operator, bigger system. But the guy does have to come out of the loader operator, pull it out so it doesn't go in and jam up the system. Okay? So it's very important that, like, when our haulers are picking up stuff at curbside, they're going to try to watch for stuff like that, and maybe they don't pick up a resident's material. And again, every hauler's different. We tend to take pictures so we can show why we didn't, but it's very important that that's where it starts at, the consumer. We have to make sure that they're putting the right material in the containers. One odd thing that we had happen, just recently, we had a safe come through our MRF. $20,000 was in the safe. And yeah, pretty cool. I mean, it turns out the safe, we called the police department, they came down. The safe got stolen out of Hastings, Minnesota, and they thought they had taken all the money out and they threw it in one of our dumpsters or containers. It came to our MRF. There was another hole within the safe that they didn't see. And so, yeah, that gas station owner was happy to get some of his money back. But again, you never know what comes through. The next part, like Jason showed as well, this is what we call our pre-sort line. And so at this point in time, guys, all systems are a little bit different. All MRFs are a little bit different, but they're kind of similar. Most recycling centers operate at least 20 tons an hour, okay? So that's equivalent of one semi-truck coming through per hour, or you can look at it about 1,500 households that we recycle an hour. So even though there's a lot of machines at the recycling center, it still requires a lot of work, a lot of labor. These guys are some of the most important people that we have. We're looking for quick hands. We actually, our supervisors, it's like baseball, they have stopwatches. We actually time people how many picks per minute they get because we want people that have quick, fast hands. They don't have time to really think. They just react. And so what we're looking at right here, the biggest issues that we have at our recycling center is, Jason alluded to it, just like the bags, but what's even worse, and I get it, my mom did the same thing. She went around the house, she put all the recycling in a bag, she threw that in the bin. the problem is these people just don't have the time to bust open all those bags. And from a safety standpoint, we don't know what's coming in a recycling center. We get syringes, we get sticky stuff. I mean, that's the worst thing that we could see for our folks is injuring them. We get ball bearings that come in, animal carcasses that come in, you name it, it's gonna come through. So from a safety standpoint, we have to make sure that we open up all the bags. If we can't, we have these chutes right here. They go, unfortunately, they go right to the compactor that goes to the incinerator or to the landfill. We just don't have time to bust open all the bags. But also from an efficiency standpoint, which I'll show you kind of later why we cannot allow bags to go through as well. So as Jason also alluded to, these are our screens, we call them. If anybody lived on a farm, it almost looks like plow, right? The discs in a plow. What happens there is the cardboard rises over that, and then all the plastics, glass, everything else falls through here and goes out another conveyor belt. Okay? So, not sure what happened there. This is why plastic bags are a problem. Bags, chains, they get all caught up in what we call the stars. And so when it gets caught up in there, now plastics, glass can't fall through. Everything rides over. So literally we have to stop our system 2 to 3 times a day. It takes about a half hour, and we have folks that literally go up there with knives and they cut that out of the system. Very dangerous work. And so that's why we are really sticklers. Obviously you can't market bags anyway. There's no end market for it, but they just cause a lot of issues at a recycling center. So please don't put material in bags. Don't put bags, shrink wrap, stretch wrap, and that kind of stuff in your recycling stream. Everybody would appreciate it. One of the other phases that we have in our recycling center, and everybody's a little bit different, but all the material after we had it now go through the screens, it's going to go in the Trommel. Everybody watched Gold Rush or those gold shows? It's similar technology like wash and rocks. But right here what we're doing is we're trying to eliminate the glass from the stream. So that as this thing spins like an inverted wash machine, all the glass, what we call the fines, are going to fall through the screens. The screens are about 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. So anything smaller than that is going to fall through. Any guesses what might fall through at this point?
Metal.
What's that? Metal? Yep, metal pieces. Another big one that recycling centers frown upon is shredded paper. Shredded paper is going to fall through there. We see shotgun shells fall through there, batteries fall through there, bottle caps fall through there. So ideally, with bottle caps on your PET bottles, we would like you to keep the cap on the bottle so that it doesn't contaminate the glass. Okay? And glass is about 20% of the volume by weight that a recycling center has, so it's significant. And again, for us to sell that, and we sell to a place in St. Paul, thankfully we have a glass outlet. A lot of states don't have glass outlets, so I know Wayne, kudos to you guys' work there. That's good to have. We used to have 2 in the state. We have 1. That's a lot better than most, so it's good to have that. Jason said this is the optical sorter, so it uses light to read the density of plastic, so it can tell if it's, where'd they go over there? It can tell if it's a milk jug, it can tell if it's a laundry detergent bottle, it can tell if it's a PET bottle, a water bottle, if you will. And then it uses technology so that when it reads it, it'll spit it off the line. So this is kind of a bad picture, but it's kind of the side where it's going to shoot the plastics off in different areas. So one of the other themes you probably hear from your recycling directors is probably the following: clean, dry, empty. If your water bottle isn't empty and you put your cap back on it, now all of a sudden the system can't read it because it's different weight. So it's going to go off the density, the thickness of that plastic, but if there's material in that plastic, odds are it probably won't be pulled by the optical sorter. The other one that we fight against is materials black in color. Optical sorters can't read black. It cannot penetrate that color, okay? So what Jason showed is that our MRF, like almost every other MRF, there is what we call the end of the line. We have people hand-picking material off it. But when I go out and educate businesses or universities on buying material, because that's where a lot of this stuff starts, proper recycling is what you buy, is try to always buy the clear shells, if you will, the clam shells. If you go to a Subway, a lot of times for salads, but have a clear top but a black bottom, it'd be great if everybody had the clear bottom. So challenges of single sort recycling, these are pretty mind-blowing stats, but I mean, if you're a recycling person who's passionate about it, everybody on the stage here, I'm sure everybody in the audience, I hate this one. Wishful recycling. Just throw it in there and hopefully it gets recycled. Odds are it probably won't. But that's 63.8 million Americans said that. It's crazy. Contamination, it really affects everybody. Everybody suffers from contamination, so people do wishful recycling, just increases costs that obviously will probably trickle down to residents at some point, so everybody suffers. Only 5% of plastics in the US are actually recycled, staggering number. 2.5 million bottles per day thrown away. A lot of work to do, sir. I have a lot more time to be out there. And how we doing on time, okay? All right. So, recycling trends. We used to get a newspaper delivered to their house every day, 15, 20 years ago. How many people still get that newspaper delivered to their house every day today? That's awesome. That's awesome. Unfortunately, you're probably in the minority. With computers, whatnot, I mean, these are some mind-blowing statistics on how much paper has dropped. And the thing of it is, newspaper is actually a really good grade. Wayne's probably going to talk about what it gets made into insulation, ink cartons. So I mean, the stuff's wanted, it's needed, there's not enough actually out there. So another trend we see is manufacturers that maybe perhaps don't go through the recycling or R&D process. A lot of companies reach out to us. We love it. We host a lot of companies, and thankfully a lot of them are in Minnesota, a lot of the headquarters. So a lot of them are going to come out to our recycling center. In fact, we have one coming out next week to get a new product they're developing. They want to work with us to make sure it's recyclable before they send it to market. This one here was not good. A couple different things going on with this right here is it's actually PETG. It's a different type of PET. The color on it, it's a struggle. So the end markets really frown upon it. So when you go out and buy, keep buying that one right there. Plus, they'll do away with those people that are eating pots, which is crazy. Here's a staggering thought as well. Lightweighting the material, that's the evolution of recycling. We process more material by volume, but it's a lot less weight. So it takes more time, energy to recycle the same amount of material, maybe like half as much as it did before. Bottles is a perfect example. They've got water bottles so thin that when they come in a semi-trailer to like a water bottle, place that puts the water in them, they've got them stacked up on enclosed water bottle, skid of cardboard, water bottle, skid of cardboard. If they made those water bottles any thinner, everything would collapse. The whole trailer. I mean, that's crazy that they've got that developed so good. But again, the problem with it is it's less plastic being used. We've seen the change in what manufacturers or food companies are doing. A lot of it used to be in glass, metal. Now it's going with flexible packaging. So if you're a store, flexible packaging is great. Longer shelf life, right? Probably less transportation cost because you can put a lot more of that in a semi than you can of this, okay? So ultimately for us consumers, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to buy that than this, okay? Just like down here. Heinz bottle, now it's in that material. It's not recyclable. The foil, that packaging is not recyclable. But it all comes down to choices. When we're making choices at the supermarket, it's going to cost a little bit more, but we got to send a signal that, you know, they're developing material that is not recyclable. It's not good, okay? So we've discussed a lot of things, what is and what isn't recyclable. If you remember anything from my conversation, please, please, please do not put batteries in your recycling container. Number one cause of fires at recycling centers. It sparks, causes a lot of issues. Better places for that. The other thing we see a lot in recycling centers is diapers. And we've done some studies. The thought is when people buy the diapers, they see the box that has the recycling symbol on it. So therefore they think the diaper is recyclable. So we got people that in the recycling center, they're pulling stuff off the lines and you see dirty diapers. I mean, it's just disgusting. So we got a work cut out for us. We can get more ahead of that, but that's a big issue. Obviously hazardous materials, don't want to see that. We discussed the sharps. Again, can't stress enough, there's other means, Stericycle, that sort of thing, the little red bins to put your needles in. So that's kind of the what not to recycle. And I'm not coming here talking about, Republic Services. There's many different recycling centers in the Twin Cities. And I'm on a committee that's really good. It's called the REC Committee, Recycling Education Committee. The goal of that committee is to standardize what is acceptable and not acceptable. So if you guys move from Goodhue County and you move up to Dakota County, and all of a sudden you do your same recycling patterns that you did here at Goodhue, it's going to be acceptable in Dakota County. So we're trying to work together, MRFs, haulers, on basically agreeing to what is and wasn't recyclable. It hit home for you guys. So you guys had your own recycling center here, right, in this county, or the city, and it had a fire. Well, now all of a sudden you have to divert your material somewhere else. We have to do the same thing. If ours MRF goes down, or maybe for routing purposes, we have to take it somewhere else. We don't want to risk that load to be rejected because our standards are different than somebody else. So the haulers like that uniformity, the recycling centers like that uniformity, residents like that uniformity, and then also, if the residents are happy, the government officials are happy, right, Wayne?
We're always happy.
So that's something that we're coming out with probably in the next 6 months, a year. You'll see more of this. And then that's what is acceptable. And again, every MRF is a little bit different. The two MRFs that we have at recycling centers, we take in the plastics 1, 2s, and 5s. Not all do the 5s, but the 5s are your tubs, the lids, that sort of thing. There's a good strong market for that material. The 1s and 2s, you really want to kind of stick with the 1s and 2s that have what we call decks on them. Some of the clamshells, if you will, the food type stuff, it's not as desirable, if you will. So again, empty, dry, and clean. And I know Wayne's going to go into a little bit of this as well, but I thought it'd be important or need to kind of show you what stuff gets turned into. So when we sell our PET bottles now, we're primarily selling to a place that turns it into carpet fiber. Okay? Very strong demand. All what we sell, strong demand domestically, and for some of the stuff regionally. So it is being marketed. The milk jugs, your laundry detergent jugs, typically go into piping, fencing, floor tiles, that sort of thing. Okay? And then again, your number 5s get turned into brooms, brushes, and auto cases.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you recycled the 5s here in Red Wing?
I'm not going to speak for the city and county. Everything's a little bit different everywhere else.
Are you going to tell us tonight if we can, or so we know what to do? Jason, do you know?
Everything goes to
Well, so we are lucky enough, we probably get a majority of material from your city right now. And like I said, we do take your number 5s. When you put your new recycling center up in the fall, I don't know if you're gonna have a 5 sorter or not. So whether or not, again, that re-education part's difficult, but we do accept 5s. That is a very good question. So Pete Keller, Vice President of our Recycling and Sustainability, and that again, this has been my theme tonight, is you can't have environmental sustainability without economic viability. So not everything's recyclable. It has to have an end market, you have to have volume, it's gotta have value, okay? So again, what we say is probably not the most popular thing, but we gotta get away from wishful recycling where people just assume it's being recycled. If in doubt, unfortunately throw it out. If you don't know if it's recyclable or not, we'd rather see that go in the waste stream than recycling. Because what's happened with the China, what Wayne's gonna talk about in more detail, is our quality standards to ship have gotten down to 0.5% to 3% range, or else we risk being rejected. There's also rules in play for recycling centers like us. There's an 85-15% rule. So every month, we have to report how much we're not recycling. And that's public information. If we get over 15%, we risk the tax benefit goes away, which would be huge for everybody. So that's where we're really concerned about the 85-15% rule, and just got to make sure that what comes in our place is actually recyclable. Yes.
I see these containers everywhere. There's no information on that, in my opinion, as far as what I can recycle. Because some of the plastics have one on them, like Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
But a lot of the plastics don't have a number on them. But I don't even know whether or not this location will be a location that will take 5s, and so therefore it should go in the blue as opposed to the gray. And so information there would be helpful for me, just not to have a picture of bottles and everything, but to have some type of either a number or some type of wording that would be more explanatory for me, who is not as educated in this as a lot of people.
Right, and it's a valid point. You know, unfortunately, when you got containers that sit outside, we do it for our industrial containers. A lot of times because it's on the inside of the lid, then it's not susceptible to the elements. You know, these are difficult because your signage you put out there, you know, susceptible to the weather. And so that's why I'm here tonight. We're doing as much education as we possibly can. I know for us, you know, we put on our website all the time what is and what isn't recyclable. We work with all the cities, the counties. They're very good at making sure what is and what isn't recyclable. And again, the whole rec thing where we're trying to get that standardization, I think is going to help you out a lot. Where now you don't have to, you know, because you don't just live in Red Wing. You go to Plymouth, you go here and there, and you're like, Jesus, this recycling? You don't even know what if the hauler will take it. So there's got to be that uniformity, and that's what we're working on. Great point. And I still have my work to do. You know, we'll never be done. I'm going to let Wayne go next, and then if there's questions after the fact, we'll certainly take more.
I would introduce myself, and so I did look at that bio before I emailed before I left Paul, but it just didn't make it. So anyway, my name's Wayne Jurdy. I work in recycling market development. So all the stuff that you see on the table over there is products that we've worked on and made in Minnesota. So I've been doing this for 23 years and 24 years on the 27th of March, so a while. Before that, I was a banker for 13 years and was on the other side of the desk in terms of working with companies that made products out of recycled materials or any materials, mainly manufacturing. So graduated from St. John's University. I don't know if anybody has graduated from St. John's or St. Ben's, but that was just a couple years ago. But my main job is actually working on end market development. So all the stuff that Steve comes out of his facility, we work at the state, and we wanted first to actually add some value in the state. So if we could make resin out of it, if it's plastic, or if we can make a product out of it, that's what we want to do. So. It's changing on the computer, but who's our computer person? It's always a challenge. So that's why I ask, do we need to bring our own equipment? And that doesn't work very well either. So anyway, so while they're getting that up, we have about 18,000 direct employees that work in manufacturing. So they use materials that are coming out from your curbside, or in case of shingles, the asphalt, although we're not doing as much of that now, but that market will come back. You see the price of oil going up and the price of gas has been going up lately. You can see these are bales of, looks like natural milk jugs. And this is a company in St. Charles. They're kind of at the beginning and working on something, but this is, if you look at this product, there's been some new regulations for pallets in terms of shipping food on. And so wood, if you have shipped a food on a wood pallet, it's a one-time use, and so these can be disinfected. But, so Steve talked about bale contamination rates. They used to be 2 to 7%, but as China came on, that has gone down a lot. And so there's 260 companies that use recycled materials. So they may use the liner board to make boxes. They may use aluminum to do casting. Oh, okay, yeah. If anybody, obviously, if you remember the 35W bridge, when I went down, I was sitting on my couch. I never got as many calls as I probably got about 10 calls till the cell phone network crashed in the Twin Cities. But anyway, they rebuilt that bridge in 13 months, and they used 7,000 tons of rebar, which came from Gerdau Maristeel in South St. Paul. Now, 3,500 tons of that was from cans that you put in your curbside bin. So if you put a can in your curbside bin leading up to that or after that, you helped build that bridge. So that was a good thing. So Steve was talking about mixed paper. Mixed paper isn't worth much at the moment, but again, part of my job is to create some end markets. So we're working on some facilities to sort that paper, sort out the newspaper, sort out the high-grade office. So, for example, if you can get clean newspaper, and again, we don't generate as much newspaper, but if we can get newspaper, we have a company called InSolution, which has expanded their facility, and they're making insulation. They'll pay $50 a ton, which is more than zero, or the -5 that they're getting now. If you have high-grade office paper, which is your copier paper, the stuff that you use, that's, depending on the grade, anywhere from $180 to $300 a ton. So you can see those are the things, this intermediary processing that we have to, some steps we have to take to do something with our material. So this is not a fast process. We've seen this coming. If as we looked at China, there was that uneasy feeling that said, what if they don't want our stuff anymore? And I thought about that for a long time, and I was getting a little grief, like, well, don't sell all your stuff to China. Maybe just, make sure you do some domestic stuff. And a lot of companies did do that, and so they weren't left out in the lurch. Next slide. Okay. So what's been going on? And I think all people who have a MRF, we've talked about, well, where are we going to put this stuff? Do we have room to store it? Is the material moving? Do we stop accepting certain materials? So Steve talked about 1, 2s, and 5s. If you've heard the term 3 through 7, and 3 being PVC, and 7 being, we don't know what it is. It's a multi-layer material, which is not recyclable. But to get the rest of the stuff, it was easier from an education standpoint to tell people to throw everything in it. Well, we're kind of backing up now, and that's part of the Recycling Education Committee, to say, well, yeah, here's what we really want. And education is an ongoing thing, it'll never stop. And I'll give you a good example. We had a campaign in 2007 called Recycle More, Minnesota. So we intensely advertised in that area for 12 weeks. The recycling rate went up 16%. We stopped. And guess what the recycling rate went back to? Went back to what it was before. So we did some advertising in the theater, recycling rate went up. After we stopped, we ran out of money, it kind of went back down. But you can be proud in Minnesota. We do have a good recycling rate, and we always are striving to do better, and we have our companies, Republic and others, that are investing a lot of money to put out the material that we're using. Now, what happens if there is no market? Well, they have to ask us for permission to throw it away. So far, we haven't had to do that. The markets, I would say, are great, but they're stable. Would that be a good term? Maybe a little, I mean, they could change at any moment, but we've managed to find homes. The people have managed to find homes for things. So, and Steve talked about the Recycling Education Committee. So, coming up with that do's and don'ts. I will add bowling balls and garden hoses to that. And Susan Heffron, who works with me, and we took a tour of all the facilities in the last year. Well, most of them this summer, but we've seen everything come through. And in particular, we've had some fires. One of the facilities in the northern suburbs, they thought it was a battery from a drill or whatever it was, and started the fire, and they had a sprinkling system and still burnt the place to the ground. So if you're on a job site, if you're anywhere, do not put your batteries in the recycling. Just don't do it, because you will cause a fire. Because it happens on probably a weekly basis, or so. Next slide. So Steve talked about, well, we have to get to 0.5%, or we have to maybe run it through another process. So that's that 0.5%. We're working on developing processing for mixed plastics and paper, and so paper. We're probably 6 months away from that facility. I mean, they're starting right now, but they will have equipment. And we're also working on agricultural plastic and film that comes in on your pellets or returned to the store. And I will emphasize again, as Steve has said, do not put your plastic bags in your recycling bin. Return them to retail. There's bins there, and I will say if the bins are full, ask your retailer to put out another bin or empty it on a more regular basis. Because there is a market for that, and we're working on creating a local market for that. So I put up, and actually Susan made this presentation, but I helped her with it. We talked about dual sort. Are we going to go back to dual sort? No, I don't think that's going to happen. But it has been talked about. Next slide.
What is this?
So dual sort, well, before Red Wing, you got off your trucks and
We do a 3-sort right now.
yeah, they're dual sort or 3-sort would be, you're sorting fiber and containers, in this case glass, right?
Glass.
Yeah. So that's when you had your bin. So if you single sorters, you put everything in the bin and it gets sorted out at the. Again, what are we doing? We, if you look in the governor's budget, there's a little bit of money for what Susan and I do and for end market development. So I can say, please support that now that it's out in the public. Making connections with potential businesses and suppliers. So what Susan and myself have been doing for probably the last, let's see, Susan's been working 3.5 years. We've strictly concentrated on end market development. Now that may be working with another state or another business or whatever, but we try to add some value to the state of Minnesota, because without end markets, and what happened with China, that actually kind of started in 2012. So this has been coming for a while, and then it kind of came to a head in early last year too. So it takes about 1 to 2 years from the time that somebody says, hey, I want to build a factory here, and if they're going to get it done, it's 2 years. So it's not a fast process, and it takes millions of dollars. So it's we have a market development subgroup, which we're talking about. Well, what materials should we are in? I wouldn't say in the most trouble, but need the most attention. So while glass recycling is okay, the value is kind of zero, like mixed paper. So we're working on, well, are there additional products that we can make out of that? Glass tiles. Actually, there is it's called Bicycle Glass Company. You can Google that. They blow glass and make light fixtures, and so we're trying to say, well, okay, they use a really small amount of glass. Is there something that we can do? Can we use our connections and hook them up with a retailer that they can mass produce some plates, or for your, so something like that. Something higher, a little higher than a glass bottle. Not that glass bottles are bad, it's just with the present economics, at Steve's level, they're not worth very much at all. So, is there anything else? Yeah, so having conversations across the state with people like you, and making sure that I had lunch over at the, or dinner at the local restaurant here when I got into town, and they said, the waitress said, well, that stuff just goes, we just throw it away, don't we? I said, well, no. I heard that in 1995, and the fact that we're still hearing it today means we have some work to do yet. Because there are some people that do believe that. That stuff that comes off my curb, yeah, it just ends up in the landfill anyway. So when anybody says that, make sure that you say, no, you're throwing away a job if you throw it in your trash bin, because that's what you're doing. And it's not only the people that are making the product, the plastic lumber, that it's the people that drive the truck that brings stuff in, it's the computer technician, it's the machine person, it's your neighbors, it's everybody down the line that supports that manufacturer. So, next slide. So, have we been here before? Yes, 1998, which is 20 years ago, we had negative 10 cents a pound on high-density polyethylene, or your milk jugs. That was, and PET, your water bottles, which there wasn't as much then, it was mostly pop bottles. Water was just getting going then. That was negative 5 cents a pound. We're kind of, what are we going to do now? Well, what we did was we invested in our local markets, our plastic lumber, Avon Plastics, Bedford Technology, Resource Processed Plastic, Inc. and Garfield, and we put some money into there, increased the capacity, and so did other states. During the 90s, Minnesota and probably about 10 to 12 other states that had programs similar to us invested millions of dollars in the local market. And if it weren't for that, we'd really be hurting today, because that investment back then, and of course these companies continued to invest in the 2000s. So we do have a base, we just have to build it back up. Invest in education, Steve talked about that. Recycling's not free, but your closed landfill is not free either. So sorry, Steve, but there are some landfills, and they are necessary things that we need, because there are things we can't recycle. But if you look at the top of the hierarchy, which is not producing that in the first place, to recycle, we want to make sure that it doesn't get below that. But again, it's a challenge with the packaging. If you have a double layer package that's made out of 2 different types of plastic, we can't recycle that. Next slide. And I will kind of go back there.
Yep.
So this is not my partner at work, Susan Heffron's child plays hockey. Actually, he's 6'4", he's not really a child, but they are playing Friday for to get into the state tournament. So she again, this was mostly her presentation, but I left her slides. I can't skate very well at all. Go ahead. So I will make a pitch. This is Susan, who works with me, and Paul Bunyan at the Eco Experience at the State Fair. So Paul, this will be Paul's last year. So please come and see him. And I'm the voice of Paul, so I will have some more things to say. I think there's 36 things that Paul says. And he talks about a variety of things, and he has a good time.